Hello and welcome. It's still breakfast time right here on Plus TV Africa. I'm David Alabi and this is today's edition of Off the Press where we discuss newspaper headlines. Now, today is the 22nd of May, being the 17th day of the blessed month of Ramadan, and indeed a time for reflection and celebration, definitely. And we say Ramadan Kareem to all our Muslim viewers. Joining us today to discuss the major headlines on the national dailies is a public affairs analyst, Gbolahun. Olojede, good to have you join us, Gbolahun. How has it been today? It's been quite a while we've had this session.
Yes, I've been here every Wednesday. I guess you had a different shift.
Exactly, but it's good to have you.
It's good to
Hope
be
your morning
here.
Started off just fine.
Yeah, so far so good.
Okay, let's kick into the main activity for today. Now, starting off with the Vanguard newspaper, we see the biggest headline here, Fulanization agenda. Obasanjo seeks to divide Nigeria in his old age, and that's according to the federal government. And we also see multiple writers here, says his comments are divisive, depressing, and that CJN, Christian Association of Nigeria, Martins, Adebanjo, Nyam, and others back Obasanjo. And moving on to other reports as well, on page 9 we see alleged professional misconduct. EFCC reports Justice Taiwo to NJC over Saraki and Okorocha. And purchasing managers index grows further. That's according to the CBN report, and page 19 has details of that business news. And the National Assembly drops stringent accreditation measures for journalists as Saraki vows to probe matter. Page 4 has details of that as well, and the ERGP's 7% target not achievable by 2020. That's according to Udo Udoma. And Ondo students shut down Akure over tuition fees hike. And also looking at the top of our newspaper, we also see no Yoruba president in Nigeria for the next 20 years. That's according to Femi Aribisala. And Otedola visits Chairman Chukwu in London. Offers more assistance. Page 45 has details, and bandits kill 34 people in Katsina, in 3 Katsina local government areas. Why not? Delta State primaries of APC charade and mockery of democracy. That's an article written by Patutomi, and page 22 and 23 have details here. And CBN to limit banks' appetite for government securities retains MPR of 13.5%. Quickly now, well, let's start off with this report, the Fulanization agenda, and Obasanjo supposedly been said to seek to divide Nigeria in its old age, and all of the comments that have come through saying that these are divisive elements. Where do you stand now? Backing Obasanjo or the federal government? Or do you think we shouldn't even have this
I don't think we
back
should
and
be
forth?
talking of backing one party or the other. There are serious security challenges in the land, and everybody knows about that. Just yesterday, I think about 34 people were killed in Katsina. So it is not something that is lost on anybody. But when you look at the choice of words that Chief Obasanjo has used, Islamization and Fulanization. Fulanization is ethnic, Fulani. Islamization is religious. Those are the two most sensitive and divisive issues in Nigeria. So a person at this level who approach these things with more, with more maturity. But it seems as if it's difficult to teach an old dog new tricks. I don't think it's about to change about that. If this, whatever he said, if there are additional intelligence, then he knows the right places to provide those intelligence to. Not putting religion and ethnicity, which are the most difficult issues, sensitive issues in our politics. So
you are saying that this is inexcusable, especially at a time when the politics is heated?
Yes, I don't think he has said anything new. Islamization story has been there all over. We've been hearing it is 2015.
But some would also say, well, it's also time for the president as well to change his disposition or his reaction to all of these issues relating to security, which have somewhat tilted to...
What I don't know is whether this open comment or the so-called divisive comment and what will now change that dimension, or to say that maybe, which was where I started from. Where I started from was that there is serious security issues in the country and we need more action, we need more intelligence, we need effective
Until we work
solutions.
on that, conspiracy
Exactly.
will continue to thrive.
But-
Okay, let's quickly shift focus now to the Punch newspaper. And 5 states lock horns with the federal government over healthcare fund. Page 2 has details. The states include Benue, Sokoto, Cross River, River State, saying that the federal government is politicizing the disbursement. And we have the pictorials here, quite a messy sight. Lagos-Badagry Expressway on Tuesday with the rains that poured. And court sentences Cameroonian home help to death for killing boss. Page 9 has details. Ogun residents protest as federal government marks 300 houses for demolition. 300 level NDU medical student commits suicide. Page 4 and page 5 have details there. And President Buhari returned from Saudi Arabia, warns against drug trafficking in page 19. And moving on to the top of the Punch newspaper now, we have 330 billion naira fine. MTN has till the 30th of May to pay 55 billion naira balance. That's according to the NTC. And page 30 has details there. Acting CJN dragged to court over alleged age falsification. Page 19. And Serap Bishop react as Saraki rejects satanic accreditation guidelines. Page 7 has details as well. And lack of funds. FG shuts 3 foreign missions. Let's look at the state of our health facilities in the country. Now, that has always been a touchy issue, and some have also said that we would like to see a stronger presence from the Minister of Health in driving this course to ensure that we have improved healthcare delivery and we see facilities within our healthcare. But now the Minister is coming out to say that blaming the deplorable state of tertiary health institutions in the country towards the inability of state governors to fund basic, primary and secondary health facilities under their respective care.
To a certain
Is
extent.
this pushing the blame, or isn't it supposed to hold them accountable, drive the conversations with these state governors?
It's a mix of both. Some of the comments he made are actually very correct. It seems as if the states have abandoned their level of healthcare system, the primary especially, and most of the secondary.
Is it not supposed to reawaken that consciousness?
There is the state government, which is a level of government with its own level of independence as it is.
And there's the Ministry of Health.
And then there is the Federal Ministry of Health doing its own part, especially with focus on the tertiary institutions. Now, if there is a failure at the primary and secondary level, there will be a major crisis at the tertiary level. That's why you see people leave their home to go to Luth for malaria. What are you doing in Luth with malaria? You're not supposed to be there. Luth is a tertiary healthcare institution, and that is the same thing you see in UCH, you see in everywhere. You see people going for what should be primary healthcare issues to the tertiary institution, so they are bogged down. So we need to go back to those and make those primary healthcares functional. When they are functional, they will help the secondary and also the tertiary to focus on the real thing they're supposed to focus on. Yeah, but at the same time, leadership problem in this country is actually pervasive. Some of the comments from this minister in the past have been abhorrent. They are appalling, horrible, and unexpected. So it shows that it's not just in healthcare, it's in education, in whatever area you turn, you see paucity of good leadership.
If he's to retain his seat now as Minister of Health for the next 4 years,
he cannot retain it.
Oh, okay. Let's quickly now shift focus to Serap Bishop reactor. Saraki rejects satanic accreditation guidelines. Some have described this as an act to suppress the freedom of the press, but the President of the Senate has also denied this accreditation guidelines, actually kicked it off and said that, well, the initial guidelines released by the management of the National Assembly does not necessarily hold. So what do you intend?
He disowned it, essentially. We cannot be too sure, but is it possible that the Senate President was not carried along before such a statement was issued?
He says it's going to probe the matter further.
Okay, so let's assume that it wasn't carried along. But whatever it is that whoever released that statement has done, we need to correct it. It's obnoxious. It's not unacceptable in a democratic environment.
And Serap has also given Taraki as well as Dogara an ultimatum as well to ensure that the Speaker and the House, the Speaker and then the President of the Senate immediately withdraw this fresh media accreditation, which it has described as repressive. Okay,
It is.
now let's now move on to this day newspaper now. Treasury bills, bonds, CBN to limit banks' investment and retains MPR at 13.5%, CRR at 22.5%. And NSE defends MTN's listing as market awaits SEC findings. Scarcity of shares continues. Page 8 has details, and bandits kill 34 in Katsina communities. And we're looking at the pictorial here. The president returns to Nigeria from a trip to Saudi Arabia. And we have here, from left to right, the Inspector General of Police, Muhammad Adamu, Chief of Defense Staff, General Abayomi Olonishaki, as well as the Federal Capital Territory Minister, Alhaji Musa Bello, and obviously shaking the president at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, from his visit to Mecca. And also, IMF, OPEC, global data target to Dangote refinery, and Trans-Forcados oil pipeline closure hinders 240,000 barrels per day exports. That's talking business on page 8. But now let's quickly look at the NSE also defended MTN's listing as market awaits the SEC findings. Now, the Nigerian Stock Exchange yesterday defended the listing, and it said that it had followed due process and did not violate any listing rules, just as the liquidity of MTN shares continues to rise. Now, some have also said, why not make the shares available if the company has gone public? Instead, are we waiting for all of those units to appreciate before?
The shares are available, but they're not enough. So there are more people who wants to buy than people who wants to sell. So it became scarce, and prices.
So just few shareholders are reaping big.
Well, apparently, it could also be a manipulation. So, which is why the issue of investigation is appropriate at this time. We also need to have observed, or to have known beforehand, that when you list an MTN, there will be demand. People had waited to get onto MTN as an investment for years and have not been able to do that. So when you just list a portion of it and put it on the stock exchange where they can access it, there will be a lot of bidding for MTN.
And treasury bills, bonds, the CBN also is set to limit banks' investments, looking at access to government securities to also redirect their lending focus to the private sector.
It's interesting to see how they will achieve that. Truly, that is what banks have been focusing on. If I can invest in government security and make 18%, why do I want to give you money to go and I'm not sure whether you will pay me back? But when I give it to government, I have 100% assurance, I have beautiful returns. So that's what banks have been doing, and they are making money.
Exactly.
So this is to redirect that effort.
Okay, and then we'll also be looking at the Nation newspaper. The biggest headlines here again: the federal government attacks Obasanjo over divisive comments as well. Anger over ex-president's Fulanization remark. I find this word interesting. And then MPC directs CBN to restrict banks' access to bonds, treasury bills. And federal government approves 25 billion naira for ASU. Page 8 has details. The FIRS plans to exceed 5.32 trillion naira revenue. Page 3 has details. NTN equities rally 2.68 trillion naira in 4 days, and knock 4. National Assembly overrules. Igalo begins light training tomorrow, and Kwara House clerk held over 400 million naira. I want us to look at the FIRS setting this target of 5.32 trillion naira in terms of revenue collection for this year, and that's according to the FIRS chairman, Babatunde Fowler. But now, one of the issues that has been raised is the fact that we keep on having taxes being paid and we don't necessarily see the implications. You raise issues of, we have people evading taxes, X, Y, Z. People are not building that culture of paying taxes. But who is to blame here for all of these trends? And we see the big wigs escape, and then it's still the smaller individuals, the masses, that still have to suffer for this brand. Because for you to raise the target or the margin, it means the man on the street would have to pay more.
Not necessarily. It might be that you are improving your collections. The rich in Nigeria are not carrying their weight as far as taxation is concerned. If you go to other climes and you find out that top 5% of the earners are paying 50% of the entire tax that is going on in that country. So, but here in Nigeria, who are the people paying the bulk of the individual taxes? It is the middle class. The rich are up there. We have presidential candidates who said they were making less than 2 million a year in this last election. Presidential candidates making 2 million naira, less than 2 million naira income per annum. So they're not carrying their weight. And that is why we have, so if FIRS and the other tax authorities can actually drive collection, improved tax collection, they can meet this target.
And hopefully we see the taxes as well pay off in terms of infrastructure.
That is a real thing. There's a contract of trust which we're not fulfilling in this country. When people give you their taxes, they expect to see the investment of those taxes in making their lives better. And we're not seeing a lot of that.
Well,
That's
we
the
hope
truth.
to see, hopefully. Now, let's also touch on the federal government also approving 25 billion naira as end allowances for ASU as well. The minister said that they spent 1.338 trillion naira on education in 4 years. But what do you make of this approval of this academic allowances for the
It's good. It's meant to make things better for them.
It's step in the right direction.
I don't think we are approaching education issues the right way, because it's a holistic affair. Infrastructure, teachers, and curriculum. We have to look at it right from the primary to the tertiary, to where we want to go as a nation, not taking pockets and pockets of issues and addressing them. This could end up being a jamboree, and a few months down the line, we'll be back to all
and this is even just part payment as well.
This is just part payment.
Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Gbolahun Olojede.
It's nice to be here.
Most definitely. Yeah. Well, breakfast continues right here and Off the Press with sports. Glad to have you back, and we're still having breakfast here, and this time around we are talking sports with our correspondent Samson. Good morning.
Good morning.
It seems to be another wet morning once again, but let's look at the world of sports now.
Yep.
Interesting reports here, and this time around we're focusing on complete sports. The biggest headline so far: Arsenal give Aubameyang Ozil transfer ultimatum, and check set to rejoin Chelsea. Chelsea ordered to pay Conte £9 million, and Italian wins bitter legal dispute with the Blues. Mkhitaryan out of Europa League final. Everton demand 15 million euros for Onyekuru, and Rogers gives Iheanacho hope. Otedola visits Chuku in London. PSG rule out Mbappe exit, and Juventus makes move for Sarri. Madrid giving hope in Mbappe, Neymar pursuits. And we turn over to the back page. We see PSG rule out Mbappe exit, and United lower Pogba asking price to £138 million. And United refusing to give up on the light, and Arsenal make offer for Neto. Giroud pens 1-year Chelsea extension, and many more. But let's start this conversation in relation to Arsenal given Aubameyang and Ozil's transfer ultimatum as well.
Well, it's a new policy at Arsenal that players entering their final 2 years would have to be sold if they're not willing to renew the deal. You know, and the basis for that is because of the bitter lesson they learned from the Aaron Ramsey sale, you know, or transfer to Juventus, because there was no sale. He left on a free transfer. It's a new policy in place that is trying to maximize profits on players who are entering the last 2 seasons and are not willing to sign.
Do you think this is really effective in terms of utilization of players?
Yes, it's good. That's right from a commercial angle. You don't want to lose your best players on a free when you can easily recoup probably some 60, 80 million pounds, you know, from them. So I think they've learned the bitter lesson. Do not forget as well that even Alexis Sanchez, you know, left at some point, although they had to do a swap deal with, you know, in that effect. Peter Cech, you know, moving back to Chelsea. It's moving back in terms of sporting directorial role, not because he's going back as a player. He's going to retire at the end of the summer. So his last game will be that of the Europa League final.
And ordering to pay Conte £9 million pounds.
Well, the dispute has been on ever since he got sacked. You know, it's due to a clause in his contract that prevented him from coaching any other Premier League club within a year of
it's
a sack.
been a bitter legal
It's just
battle.
been a bitter legal battle. It's good to see that there's a green light, you know, and it's all ended now. Chelsea will have to part with £9 million, you know, as a payoff, you know, and let's see how that goes.
Okay.
I think Conte will be back, you know, on the dugout, probably with Juventus.
Lastly, Little Bird is telling me we don't have enough time, but Mkhitaryan out of Europa League final as well.
Yeah, it's a sad one because it's a political crisis. It's from Armenia, and the Europa League final is taking place in Baku. That's the capital of Azerbaijan. And what it means is it cannot play in the final because of security reasons.
Let me play Oliver Twist now. Rogers gives Iheanacho hope.
There's no hope.
Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Samson Oloyede. And that's it. This is where we wrap up today's edition of Off the Press. Many thanks for watching. Keep it to date with us, same time tomorrow.